All right, we're going to get a little geeky here. We're going to look at some XML. Specifically, we're going to look at PHPUnit's XML configuration file. And I want to call attention to this line here. If you're like me, maybe you've looked at that and just glossed right over it and didn't give it a second thought. Well, today I want to explain what that is and how it helps us. So the first thing to note is that this is pointing to a file on our disk, and that file is an XML schema definition. That's what XSD stands for. And the way I like to think of it, just like a database has a schema where we specify the tables and the columns and the different attributes of those columns, an XML document also can have a schema definition that defines what are the allowed elements and attributes and what are the allowable values for each of those attributes. And it has a very complex schema definition. That's what this file is. In fact, this line links our document that we're in, phpunit.xml, to that schema definition. Great. So how does that actually help us? Well, if I click into this, I could read this document, right? This is telling me what all the allowed things are. I don't think this is the way I like to consume documentation, but it does help our editor. Most editors know what that schema definition means and how it works, and so it's going to light up some functionality in our editor. For example, if I go here and I start to open a new element, it's showing me in this context, test suite is the only valid sub-element. And if I just hit tab, it even adds the name attribute because that one is required, and it puts my cursor right there. Now, so that's useful. It's useful from a tooling perspective to help me type things in more quickly. But it also is an error checker, right? If I typo this, it's telling me, first of all, it's in red, and I have the dreaded squiggles, but it's telling me this element is not allowed here. So it also is a nice error catching tool as well. And it's not just for elements, it's for attributes on elements. So for example, this root PHPUnit element here has quite a few different attributes on it. If I go here and I hit my autocomplete, I see a list of all the different things that can be there. And if I pick one of these, stop on defect, it shows me what the allowable values are. So that's super useful as well. The last thing I want to show, that the way it helps us, is it knows what the default values are. So for example, I have stop on failure set to true, but what if I had false? Now that's a valid value, but notice how it's in gray. It's telling me this is redundant. If I didn't even specify stop on failure, it would just default to false. So in this case, there's no point in having that there. I could eliminate some of these redundant configuration elements and kind of clean up my file and make it easier to read. So there's your little bit of XML trivia for today. This is what that file does.